This is The World According to Jen and Carolyn.
Hey.
We were just talking about BMs.
Ew, why'd you say it?
To start out.
That, like, you know, like how people don't like the word moist or...
Oh, I don't like that word either.
Mine's BM.
Which stands for bowel movement. So the older folks usually refer to taking a dump or pooping as having a BM, a bowel movement.
If a word had a smell... poop.
Yep.
It's that.
That makes sense.
Ugh.
Yeah. I have a 7-year-old, so poop is the word du jour. Yeah. Yep.
It's cool.
Take a dump.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not here to talk to you about BMs today. We are here. You know what? I'm going to take these earrings off. So speaking of urban legends, which is what we're here to talk to you about, I bought these earrings in probably one of the spookiest places in America. I bought them in New Orleans last year, and I've recorded with them on before. They're actually made of beetle wings, which sounds creepy, but they're gorgeous.
They're beautiful.
They're really pretty, but they make a lot of noise. They're practically a percussion instrument. So we're going to put those right back there.
Beetle wings. You can wear them to go see Beetlejuice.
Beetle wings. The guy who made them was really talked me into them. He's like, they look so good with your red hair. I'm like, fine, sold, $50. Take my money. Anyway.
When you had to say Beetlejuice 3 times and it would make him appear.
Yes,
this is true. Is that an urban legend?
Well, I mean, it plays into some of the urban legends we're going to talk about, like Bloody Mary, where you recite somebody's name and they appear. So, there's a mirror in front of Carolyn, so we can't say it too many times. Anyway, or Candyman. They all have a pretty similar origin. So that's what we're going to talk to you about today. So I feel like we are in scary season. I know it's early September. I already got my pumpkin shit out.
It's on.
It's time to party, y'all. So turn out the lights, pour yourself a pumpkin spice, whatever the fuck, and fire up your scented candle, because we're here to tell you all about urban legends. So we're going to take a look at the origins of some of the most infamous urban legends, like Bloody Mary, as we mentioned, the hook hand dude, and La Llorona. That's how you say it. Sorry. White tongue. As well as explore whether or not there's any truth to these tales that keep us in line and up at night. And we're going to do this from a multicultural perspective too, because I feel like these oftentimes are centered too much on American
white teenagers.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to go into some other places as well for y'all. So are you ready, Carolyn?
No.
Yes.
When we were writing this last night, or I was writing my section, I specifically was texting, you're so mean to me.
I'm the worst.
I was afraid to go in the basement.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not it's a garage.
It's not really a basement.
Yeah. But it's dark.
Yes.
And it's scary. My garage growing up was very similar.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the sky and I was like, I better go get the laundry before it gets dark.
Like I Am Legend.
And I started freaking myself out. And I really was getting legit scared. And of course I text you and you start making fun of me. And
so good. I turned to Bill and I'm like, what's the phone number for the landline that's in the garage? And he goes, why? And I said, I want to scare Carolyn. And he said, she disconnected it after the last time you fucked with her. I'm like, oh, she's smart. She's smart.
This gives me the heebie-jeebies, even though I know it's not real.
Okay.
It scares me.
It is scary, and it's meant to scare and keep you in line, and we'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite urban legend, or are you too scared to even disclose?
I had a lot of them. I mean, I don't know if you can tell me if some of these count. Pools turning red if you peed in them. That was more of a cautionary tale. I don't know if that's an urban legend.
No.
Okay, I specifically remember the Burlington Coat Factory.
What?
One where it was like someone at Burlington, because we go to Burlington Coat Factory to buy our coats every year. And there was one about how a woman got bit by a snake well, that was one.
Well, that's a big one. Not the Burlington specifically. I'm not familiar with that. Okay. But there are tons of animals showing up in places they shouldn't be and biting you.
Okay. Well, that was
rats in the toilet.
Well, and remember, I know, and this is what's weird about me is that all this creepy stuff, but I loved Are You Afraid of the Dark and the Crypt Keeper?
Yep.
And they did the spider bite.
That's a really popular one.
That one. But I also loved fables and Grimm's fairy tales and fairy tale theater. Rest in peace, Shelley Duvall. And I'm a pretty fanciful person. And even as I was a kid, I live a lot in my imagination. I'm extremely gullible. Also, I don't know if this counts, the Bermuda Triangle. Is that an urban
That's
legend?
not, I wouldn't call that an urban legend.
And I was going to say like Loch Ness. So yeah, so I don't know.
Urban legend, Loch Ness does fall into that category.
Okay. So to me, that's more like Inside Edition. Like
it's more supernatural. Well, I mean, urban legends usually have a supernatural kind of flair to them.
Yeah.
A lot of times, except for like animals in the toilet and spider bites and stuff, which is creepy.
I'm still afraid of that.
Well, there's real, the spider bite, like laying eggs in your face kind of thing. I don't know how feasible that is, but rats in your toilet, that shit happens.
Oh,
it has happened.
I would die.
Snakes in the toilet.
Snakes on a plane.
Snakes on a plane. So, okay, if I had to say my favorite urban legend, it's probably the babysitter or the caller. The call's coming from inside the house.
Yes.
I love that. And those who, depending on who's telling it or what movie it's put in, they range from being really goddamn gory, from like the children having their throats slit in their sleep, which is a bridge too far for me.
Yeah.
I prefer everybody surviving and the babysitter having a very harrowing near-death experience, but in the end vanquishing the dude who comes to kill her. Like, that's what I want to see. And then obviously Scream is a play on that. So you see these same urban legends being reinterpreted in different formats.
And there was a movie called Urban Legend.
Yes, there was, which I've never seen.
Real? Oh, it's so stupid.
I'm sure it is, but I'm sure I'd love it.
Tara Reid when she's still plump and voluptuous.
Oh, I love me some Paradise. But my husband's a big Tara Reid fan.
Of course he is.
Yes, he is, like most men. So the origin of the term urban legend, let's talk about that. So I got this from AI. Thank you. It was first used in print by folklorist Richard Dorson in 1968. Jan Harold Brunvand, an English professor at the University of Utah, popularized the term in the general public with a series of books starting in 1981, the year of my birth. So the definition, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is a humorous or horrific story or piece of information circulated as though true, especially one purporting to involve someone vaguely related or known to the teller. There's a lot of 6 degrees of separation in this one.
Did you ever watch the John Leguizamo show?
No, but I love him.
He did one called Urban Legends, but it was like from the hood.
Yes. Well, I love Tales from the Hood. That's one of my favorite movies. Oh my God.
But he does one. This was another one, accidentally putting the dog in the microwave.
Oh no.
I remember that because I forget who's always like his buddy. Like that he and this guy are always in movies together. It's like another Latino actor.
Guzman? Maybe it's Guzman. I fucking love him.
He's like Fluffy. Fluffy. It's so funny. I'm going to find that.
I love John Leguizamo. I would totally watch that. So do you know the difference between an urban legend and a folktale?
No.
Okay. So urban legends are shared and believed by people of all ages, classes, professions, and education levels. This is different from traditional folktales, which are usually associated with rural, pre-literate societies.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that every culture kind of has its own cautionary tale.
It's true. Or an interpretation of the same tale that fits that individual culture.
Like, that's
cool.
Trippy.
And also it's the element of I knew somebody ... Where when you're talking about fairy tales and folklore, that's not the situation.
No. Okay, well that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we know the difference, let's take a look at some of those popular urban legends within and outside of the US. So this is from The Guardian. We're going to rely on their list. We talked about Bloody Mary. She is perhaps the most famous modern myth, and this tale suggests that if you look in the mirror and say Bloody Mary a specified number of times, it's 3, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, we've done it, and she didn't show up.
She's never shown, but
Unless
I'm not.
She is.
I really don't want to tempt fate here.
Let's not tempt the Catholic.
No,
Church.
Totally. So it's what I've got some rosary beads right behind me.
Okay,
I might grab them. So, oh God, I'm burping up this chorizo. Jesus. It's an urban legend right there. Don't eat the keto burrito. It will come back to haunt you guys. So this is back to Bloody Mary. It's the what the legend disagrees on part that, we find the discrepancies on, or the disagreements. In the earliest versions, an unmarried woman would see the face of her future husband in the glass or the skull if she were destined to die before being wed.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Oh, she'd see him or a skull. So if she saw the dude, that's who you're going to marry. If she saw a skull in the mirror instead, that means you're going to die.
And you'll never be wed.
And you'll never be wed.
Was she a virgin too?
Probably.
Yeah.
All right. Whatever.
Cool.
Cat ladies for Kamala. So This evolved into something more gory, right? Groups invoking a bleeding spirit or witch called Bloody Mary. Some links have also been made to Queen Mary the First, as she suffered multiple miscarriages during her reign.
That's where I thought it came from.
That's sad.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
So there could be a grain of truth to a lot of these.
That's fair.
Or a story that was true. Yeah. And taken to
it's like how Ring Around the Rosie is about the plague.
The plague. Yeah. Ring a rosies, pocket full of posies. Oh, that's
ashes. We all fall down. Let's sing that in nursery school, kids.
It's so dark. It's like scary stories to tell in the dark.
I just taught that the other day.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, not the origin story of it. But.
No, you got to wait till later for that one. So the spider bite, this is the one you mentioned.
Yep.
This is probably one of the more believed urban myths. This one tells the tale of a young person, often a traveler to a far-flung location, who is bitten by a spider and or an ant. On returning home, the victim experiences a hatching, whereby parasitic baby spiders and or ants burst from under their skin. That reminds me of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. They had that story in there as well.
Well, that does happen.
Yeah.
Like medically, people
I'm sure.
do like things.
Monsters inside of me.
Monsters inside of me. Like things that get in your ear. I still think that.
Well, that's Broke Down Palace, that Claire Danes movie. Remember her friend? Something laid its eggs in her friend's ear.
I would die.
That fucks me up.
Yeah.
I covered my ears up when I slept for so long after that. I need some earmuffs. So. Then we have The Hook Man, which is another one of my favorites.
This one.
Great cautionary tale about premarital sex. So this tale features an amorous young couple out for a drive when the radio informs them that a hook-handed lunatic has escaped from a local institution. How would he have his hook if he escaped from an institution? Gotta ask the hard questions, guys. Either the couple go home to find the hook embedded in the back of the car, or one of them ends up suspended above the car with his fingers scraping against the roof. Yeah. But usually they speed away before they bang it out in the back seat. And that's the cautionary tale. Look, had you stayed and fucked, you would have gotten killed. Yeah. But you didn't engage in premarital teenage sex, so you're still alive. Then we have The Licked Hand, which is another.
I've never heard of this one.
I love this one. In this popular tale, a scared girl, or sometimes an old woman, listens to an ominous dripping coming from within her house. She is reassured by the presence of her faithful dog, who licks her hand from under the bed.
That's weird.
Yeah. Eventually, she investigates the noise only to find her dog slaughtered and a message written in blood. Humans can lick hands too.
Okay, see, that was the one that put me over the edge last night. I was like, under the bed is not safe still. I do not put my foot on the edge of the bed.
And there have been actual stories of people hiding under beds and waiting and then attacking people.
Right?
Or hiding in the closet. Dennis Rader hid in a closet.
Well, I was going to say, the Hook Man, that's such a serial killer move too.
Yeah.
To attack couples necking in cars.
Absolutely. Look at the, what was it? The dude
the Strangler. The Hillside Strangler?
Hillside Strangler went for women.
Oh, wait, no, never mind.
It was, why can't I think right now?
Genres.
Oh my God. Son of Sam. Son of Sam used to shoot couples in cars. Yeah.
Not a hook.
Not a hook, but he still came for you if you were making out. So then the call is coming from inside the house, which is the one I like. The moral is clear. Women, protect your children, or babysitter, protect your children. And it's always a young woman in that situation too. So variations of this one see a babysitter being tormented by threatening phone calls that turn out to be coming from inside the house. The children in her care are often murdered. So, and this one, these are some from around the world. This is courtesy of thetravel.com and Jack's Flight Club. So in Japan, there's some, I'm going to massacre this, no pun intended, guys. The Kuchisaka Onna.
That sounds good.
Okay, the Kuchisaka Onna is the name of a ghost that appears in many versions of an urban legend in Japan. This ghost is also known as the slit-mouthed woman because of the way she looks. According to the stories, Kuchisaka Onna can be seen wandering around and is always wearing a surgical mask. Well, now everybody's wearing a fucking surgical mask. Everybody's doing it. They walk amongst us and we don't even know. This is why New York outlawed masks. Now, she will approach anyone who walks near her and asks them if she's pretty. The person says yes. She'll remove her mask to reveal the cuts of the corners of her mouth and ask again, say yes again. Or she's said to cut your mouth to match hers. Yeah, I would be like, yes, you're pretty. You're beautiful. Please leave me alone.
Japanese horrors, like next
it's the
level.
Scariest. Well, it's the origin of the ring. Like,
really?
Oh, Ringu? I watched the Japanese version, which I wasn't super impressed by because you know how the woman is the person who saves everything in the American version? Well, in the Japanese version, the dude just slaps her around a bunch and basically calls her hysterical. And yeah,
sounds about right.
It's not very pro-feminist. So anyway,
we do get hysterical sometimes.
Yeah,
we probably just because we haven't masturbated in a while.
Well, our uterus is like floating around in our bodies, right? And it's causing hysteria.
Weird.
So speaking of, let's go to Mexico where we find La Llorona. I think I said it right. No, La Llorona isn't just the subject of a horror movie. In fact, that movie was based on an actual urban legend. It says from Mexico, but I've read it's from Colombia. I'm almost positive.
Okay.
I think, but it is popular in Mexico, but I think it came from Latin America. Yeah. So the story of La Llorona is one of the best known spooky stories that has come from Mexico, and for good reason. The story is terrifying. It is. According to the story, La Llorona was a woman who was left by her husband. In her grief, she drowned her children and herself. Now she spends her time as a ghost wandering around crying and looking for your children, actually looking for her children, but sometimes she'll take any kids. The legend states that anyone who comes near her will meet the same fate as her children. Ooh. Other versions of the story claim she actually kidnaps other kids.
Oh, man.
So, and we've seen that in things like, what's the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and what's her face where she drowns her kids? Where he's a detective and then, oh my God, I can't think right now. But anyway.
We're done, right? We're not done. We're tired.
I can't remember all these movies. God damn it.
I know. I can't think of a name. Not the island one.
It is. Shutter Island. That's it.
Oh, that movie.
But she drowns all of the kids.
That's right.
And so there's plays, there's ties to these tales that have been around for a really long time. Who was the lady who
actually did that?
Oh, that was
Susan
Yates.
Smith? No.
Susan Smith. I think it was Susan Smith. I think it was.
I'm sorry, girl.
I think her name was Susan Yates or something like that. Yeah, that was
really
awful.
Did it. That was awful.
She was suffering 90s. Some mental health shit. So in Nepal and Tibet, we have the Yeti.
Really?
Popular in Western culture as Sasquatch, mainly thanks to the Everest expeditions of the 20th century. But the Himalayan wild men, or Mete, man bear has been found. Man bear pig has been around for much longer. I was saying man bear pig, and Bill had no idea what I was talking about. He wasn't a South Park person. His brother is. Okay. So the monster showed up in written accounts in the 12th century. That's how long ago the Yeti was made popular. Then we've got, the abominable snowman. The Sherpa version is like Sasquatch, over 6 feet tall, etc. So, there's a lot of crossover between cultures when it comes to these things. And then there was a 2014 DNA analysis showed that had some hair samples attributed to Yeti, or that's what they said, were actually from a Paleolithic Himalayan polar bear, which is fucking cool.
That is cool. I believe it.
I'm into that.
Yeah.
And then you've heard of the chupacabra?
No, I have not.
The goat sucker?
I think did we talk about this one before though?
Possibly.
Okay.
So this one started in Puerto Rico. So chupacabra means goat sucker, and for good reason. Real people were losing real livestock. Farmers reported finding their animals drained of their blood with 2 holes in their neck. Thousands of them were dying. And so they blamed this like reptilian looking alien like thing. Yeah, pretty much. But it was probably just wolves. So, or some type of carnivorous animal attacking livestock. So, clearly urban legends exist in pretty much every culture. Now, Carolyn, how do urban legends start, and why do they keep going in some cases for centuries? 12th century.
That's pretty cool.
Yeti.
Well, I'm going to repeat some of the stuff you said, but I think it
bears repeating.
And
man bear pigs repeating.
Man bear pigs repeating. I love it. Well, any of the Al Gore South Parks were always some of my favorites. That was just funny. Oh, Al Gore. All right. So you combine what you talked about: rumor, fear, fascination with the unusual and the macabre, and you get the perfect urban legend.
Yeah.
And they usually persist and are rooted in, again, deep-seated fears, cultural narratives, and social behavior. So all the things that make up kind of a good horror movie genre. And that's something that would scare you. But did you know, Jen, that there is an international society for contemporary legend research?
Cool.
And it's a peer-reviewed journal called Contemporary Legends. I kind of want to subscribe to it.
How do I sign up?
Girl, I'm on it already. I'll make that a business expense
for us. We'll put this in the show notes, you guys.
And then there was a 2017. Now, I thought was weird because there was a lot of, while urban legends haven't actually been research to say that they're real or not. Like you said with the Yeti, there's usually some truth component and then it's exacerbated, because before the internet, people talked to each other and gathered around the campfire.
Yes.
And the elders would tell stories of days of yore.
So cool.
It is cool.
Let's bring it back.
It reminds me of, did you ever read Fahrenheit 451?
No, I didn't have to read that one.
At the end of it, they burn all the books and it's really sad. But at the end, every person memorizes the book and then tells it. And this is then how stories get passed on. I know it's really beautiful. But anyway, so I did find a 2017 Cognitive Evolution and the Transmission of Popular Narratives, a lit review and application to urban legends.
Love it.
And it basically does probably hundreds of different lit review studies on just sort of putting together answering this question. And here's what the study found, so you don't have to read it.
Perfect. Summarize it for me.
Humans are disposed to learn, remember, and transmit certain types of information more easily than others. And when information is passed between people and it's subjected to what's called cognitive selective pressures that alter the content and the structure, and it makes it they call it like a maximal transmissibility. So it's like a virus.
I love it.
The more fear you put in, the more kind of like this more sexiness you put into the story, the more believable it's going to be.
Gifted storyteller.
Exactly.
That's why they were they held positions of honor in
to be a storyteller.
Cultures.
Yes.
Yeah. And in other cultures that aren't American cultures.
I very much respect anyone who's an author and can say as a person who wishes she can write like an actual story.
or even actors, right?
Yes.
There are modern day storytellers.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So humans are better at learning things through spoken word, which I agree with. This study also found that the most exploited at least one known content bias.
Okay.
Which content bias is emotional information or social information. And we argue that the narratives that kind of succeed better is because they adapt relative information that kind of crosses over. So if you're talking about, the babysitter and the phone rings, now it might be she gets an email or she gets a FaceTime. She gets a FaceTime or a TikTok, right?
A Snapchat. Be gone in 24 hours.
Exactly. But this post will disappear.
Don't get me started with about the down the hill.
No.
Oh, I'll tell you briefly because it's really sad. But these two girls, 14-year-olds, I think this was in Indiana. I could be wrong. They still have not caught the guy who did this to them, but they were out at this park and one of the girls captured something on her Snapchat and all you can hear is the guy going down the hill and he's marching them down the hill, presumably to where he kills them.
Oh God.
But she caught it on her Snapchat.
Oh God.
It's so sad.
Oh, how awful.
Anyway, please go on.
Anyway.
Try to go on after that,
Speaking of that, here's a quote from Michael Coven, a folklorist at the University of Wales. Life is so much more interesting with monsters in it. Sorry, I was going to do a British accent. He's actually Welsh.
Oh, yeah.
So he says life is more interesting when there's monsters in it. I disagree with that. But he said it's the same of legends. They're just good story. Coven goes on to name some of the ingredients, again, that are necessary for it to grow into an urban legend. And so, again, a little bit of fact mixed with some fiction and a lot of exaggeration. Okay. The common themes you talked about as well. They're usually easy to remember and retell unless you're me. They usually have something shocking or sensational detail. And time, like I said, kind of has to, it has to move along with time. So they adapt. There's also always psychological appeal.
Okay.
And this goes very hand in hand with why we talk about, true crime. There's usually some sort of appeal to personal safety and something of the unknown that we find kind of intriguing. So it taps into common fears, anxieties, maybe desires. And you talked about the cultural resonance that preys on sort of societal worries and not just your emotions, but again, like I said, from a literary standpoint, it's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And I have this vivid memory of knowing, because the fifth graders told us in middle school, that the bathroom stall at West Portal Lutheran had AIDS on the toilet. And, this went on over, had been going on for years and years. And again, it's this silly concept of something that we didn't understand.
It's a fear.
It's a fear that then got recapitulated and used as a way to kind of bully people who use the middle stall.
Yeah.
And like, oh, you didn't know? You're not in the know too. So this turns into something called a very key concept that is called confirmation bias. People often remember and share stories that confirm an existing belief or fear.
Yeah.
And that's, in a nutshell, why the more people that hear an urban legend and retell it, it becomes more true. And then it then reinforces its longevity.
Yeah. And that can get really scary. And we're going to talk about that too. You know, most of us, I think, know that these things are not true. But there's, well, I know you're real impressionable. I'm worried about you. But there are impressionable people out there, particularly young people who think these things are true and act in that way. Now, I'm not one of those people who's saying ban this, you know, like most young people, probably 99.9% of them.
You grow out of it.
Yes, but some don't. We're going to talk about that. Although I think they've grown out of it anyway. So if you think all urban legends are fiction, think again. I literally just said like, it's all made up, but some people fall for it. No, there is some truth to some of these, as we were saying, unfortunately. So here's some nightmare fuel for you.
I hate you. I have to go home alone again tonight. This is awful.
You're welcome to stay here. This is courtesy of Blame Mental Floss and Watch Mojo, because that's where I got the shit. So cropsy. Have you heard of cropsy?
No.
Okay, I don't think I had either. So for years, kids living in and around Staten Island raised goosebumps by retelling the tale of Cropsy, a boogeyman who lived in the woods and made a nocturnal habit of disemboweling children. No big deal. Parents, no doubt, eased their kids' fears by telling them no such monster existed, but he did. In 1987, Andre Rand was put on trial and convicted for a child abduction. Rand, it turned out, may have been connected to a rash of child disappearances in the 70s. He had once worked at Willowbrook, which we're very familiar with, a defunct mental institution. While he denies involvement in other cases, it's clear Rand's activities had a heavy influence in the word of mouth stories that followed. All right, Cropsy.
So it started as a real thing. It was real. People might have said it, and then it became lore, but it really was real.
There was some origin, some legitimate origins.
Name too, Cropsy.
I know.
That's
it's
a
haunting.
creepy ass name.
Yeah, it's bad. Okay, this one really fucked me up. Murders through the medicine cabinet. I never quite lived in government housing, but I lived in some pretty low income apartments where I can imagine that this kind of shit would have happened. So the 1992 movie Candyman introduced audience members to a scene that has become almost cliche. A villain bursts through a bathroom mirror to attack unsuspecting victims. What many viewers don't know is that this scene is based on a terrifying true story. In 1987, a woman named Ruthie Mae McCoy called 911 from her Chicago housing project, saying frantically that men were coming in through her bathroom wall. Unfortunately, police made minimal efforts to enter her locked apartment, giving up that evening and the next, even after reports of gunshots. A neighbor insisted that the building managers check on Ruthie, and they discovered her body. The murderers, who were never apprehended, had broken in through the bathroom medicine cabinet. Apparently, the way the building had been designed is for plumbing purposes. They wanted nothing in between the medicine cabinet so they can easily get from one unit to the other to like address issues with pipes.
Oh.
Yeah. Big fucking safety concern, apparently.
Yeah.
This isn't the first time something like this has happened. There was another story, a true crime story I listened to, where this guy was killing people in this one apartment complex. He was getting in. You can get in, I think, from one place to another via the closets, like above the closet. I know, fucked up. You're never gonna. And Carolyn never slept again.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to drink yourself into a stupor tonight to just pass out.
I will not be getting high. I'll tell you that.
Don't do that.
Much.
That'll make you paranoid. So, dead people mistaken for Halloween decorations.
I've heard of this one.
You've probably noticed that Halloween decorations are getting more and more gruesome and realistic. This has led to a strange problem: people mistaking real dead bodies for fake ones. This happened in 2005 in Frederica, Delaware, and in 2009 in Marina Del Rey at the Del Rey Deli, California. After the bodies of people, if you don't watch the Nick Kroll show, you're going to be like, "What the fuck are they talking about?" It's the Del Rey Deli.
Get on our level.
Get on our level. You're missing out. So, that's when after there were bodies of real people found who unfortunately had taken their own lives, and it was thought to be Halloween pranks. So there was actually another case in 2014 in Florida, of course, after a man died by hanging himself in a garage. A pair of handyman found the body, assuming it was a mannequin, and brought it to the dump.
I don't know about that.
I don't know how after touching and smelling you could still conclude that it's fake.
I mean, the spirit of Halloween store is pretty on point,
Liam
but they're
gets
not that
so
good.
scared. Yeah. He does not want to walk in.
You know what I don't like? I don't like when during the Halloween season when people have the hands or the foot on out of their trunks.
Oh,
have
you don't
seen
like that?
No, too real.
Bill doesn't like when things jump out at you.
No, I don't either. Jump scares
really freaks him out. I know, it's a cheap scare. So, okay, now here comes a twist. I want to talk about Slender Man, which I alluded to earlier. More specifically, the preteen girls who stabbed their friend nearly to death, claiming that they were only doing it to appease Slender Man. So let's look at the details of this crime, courtesy of crimemuseum.org. So Slender Man is a fictional character created on a website called Creepypasta. He's a tall, slender creature with white skin and no facial features. The story was created by many individuals online and was added to over the years with fictional lore, hoax videos of sighting, and altered photographs. They're really scary if you look at them.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what happened on May 31st, 2014. 12-year-old Peyton Leutner was stabbed 19 times. I cannot believe this poor girl survived. The previous night, Peyton spent the night at a birthday sleepover with friends, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weir. On the morning of May 31st, the girls went to a local park where Morgan and Anissa had intentions to kill Peyton. After the Slender Man stabbing, Peyton, Morgan, and Anissa left her in the woods and traveled 5 miles on foot. When police left her in the woods, she traveled 5 miles on foot. So when police found the girls, they were calm and collected, explaining that Slender Man made them do it. They were told by Slender that they had to kill someone to be worthy of living alongside him, and if they failed, their families would be killed. Morgan, who stabbed Peyton, was sentenced to 40 years in a mental institution, was diagnosed with schizophrenia and psychotic spectrum disorder, which made her prone to delusions. Anissa, who planned the attempted murder, was sentenced to 25 years in a mental institution. Peyton Leutner miraculously survived the attack after crawling to an open patch of grass and being spotted by a bicyclist. Isn't that crazy?
I never heard that.
Did you watch the HBO documentary Beware the Slender Man?
Are you kidding me?
I did.
It's weird because when I read this, we had 2 clients at a teen rehab that I worked at.
Yeah.
Who I remember they were bonding over this story.
Oh, no.
But they called it like the Hat Man or something. It was a different person.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, he comes to you in your dreams. And then I remember that weird movie we all watched in the pandemic. And it's like the weird, like, crooked neck man.
Oh, was it the Babadook?
I don't know.
Okay.
I hate all this shit.
I can't believe you watched that with us, whatever it was.
I don't know if I did.
So interesting fact. The girl who was diagnosed with schizophrenia, her father's schizophrenic. And so there's the hereditary there.
Okay.
He was taking his medication and he was doing okay.
Okay.
I don't even know if the daughter knew,
Probably
but
not,
clearly genetic predisposition to schizophrenia.
Yeah.
So, this is from people. And I thought this was really resonated with me. I thought it was interesting. 2017, the bizarre case was the subject of, as I said, that documentary I mentioned on HBO. And, they were attempting to really decipher how 2 seemingly normal, relatively normal tween girls can do something this horrific. They were both kind of outcasts, but nothing really like raising alarm bells about their behavior.
Right.
And the director, Irene Taylor Brodsky, said, of course they're guilty, but how much do we hold them accountable? She points to the girls' ages and questions the impact the internet has on the developing brains of tweens. It really could be any of our kids. Now, Carolyn, you work with this age group and with parents a lot. What happened here? And really, could it have been prevented? And could it actually be any of our kids?
Okay. Well, again, that's like saying that all violent video games or all violent movies predispose us. I don't ever like making an overarching, but here's what I'm thinking when I read this. If one actually had mental health issues, that's tragic.
Yeah.
I'm actually a little bit more. So which one was that? That was Morgan. I'm a little bit more freaked out by Anissa.
Yeah.
Because, again, she's the one that hopped on this sort of bandwagon. And to, as far as we know, the only issue I would say is she's showing signs of psychopathy, that she would go with that.
She was the one that did the plan, I think.
Yeah.
Which is more than
that's a little bit, okay, so this one has the idea and she I don't want to say opportunity, like something's not right.
Right.
That's not normal. That's not common.
Yes.
That's a little extreme.
This could not be my child.
But I do want to say, and again, you would see these traits taking hold in adolescence.
Yes.
This is when we usually see psychopathy, or if you've had predispositions or things that, like, again, schizophrenia.
This is early for schizophrenia, though.
It's and for a female too.
Yeah,
like that's not, but again, who knows?
Yeah, it's early onset.
We have a lot of hormones in our food now. I don't know what that's doing to our brains, right? But again, so I would say I hope this is isolated and rare. But here's what the data says on social media and teens. So this is from a January of my favorite of all sources, the Pew Pew Research. I love when I get to quote
Yeah,
that.
you do.
Pew Research related social media use among teens in the U.S. Again, from 2024. All right, here's some stats for you. 9 in 10 13 to 17-year-olds are on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, at least half of the time.
Jesus.
This doesn't matter what their gender is or gender identity, their race or ethnicity, their economic background, or their community.
Mm-hmm.
So typically you would see some variation. Doesn't matter. It's accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
You're seeing these same things. Many teens are on social media daily, if not constantly. It changes, vary by platform, of course, but about 7 in 10 US teens say they visit YouTube every day. 16% say they do it constantly.
Jesus.
TikTok followers, 58% say they visit it daily. Far fewer report Facebook. That's where the old folks are. 73% have constant access to a device. That's too much. Yeah. That is too much. Over half say it would be hard to give up. Mm-hmm. And here's what also is interesting. Half of teens think criminal charges or permanent bans for users who bully, harass others on social media would reduce the harm on these platforms.
Yeah.
And so I linked this in the show notes. You can look at this study. It's fascinating. It really breaks it down, beautiful graphs, and goes, platform by platform. Mm-hmm. But, again, we have to start talking about how the internet, not just from a moral, and this is where I don't like where the argument goes. Okay, so you could physically or theoretically say, well, parents have to supervise. I don't like that.
No,
I don't think that's fair. And
no.
I also think then you get into sort of a moral thing of like, well, what does your family consider? My family thought The Simpsons was not, appropriate content.
And we can't supervise all the time.
And so I don't like that.
Yeah.
This is a standpoint which again, you can't ask adults who also are equally addicted to the same platforms. Right. I think we have to start asking from a legislation standpoint.
Yeah.
What's being created that prevents access to anyone under the age of, let's say, 14.
Yeah.
I'll be reasonable. Yeah. But again, I think in the same way about how we put pornography magazines behind a counter.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying there's anything dirty about it. Mm-hmm. But at a certain age, do we want that window to open for you?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And again, that there should be some, and if you want to take a less, moral compass of this, I'll say cigarettes.
Yeah.
Did it mean I smoked my first cigarette in 5th grade after the Just Say No campaign came or the smoke-free class in 2000? But, again, it doesn't mean everything on the internet is bad or awful. And I also don't think we shouldn't have these things. It's going to be part of our life. Yeah. But we have to look at, in this case of what happened, it is very extreme. We have the research now. We have the knowledge about the neuroscience of the child and adolescent brain, as well as addiction.
Yeah.
And the same way we did this with cigarettes, alcohol, or access to certain type of visual content, the environmental stimuli, there has to be age limits.
I agree. It's a lot harder to regulate than an actual substance. And when almost every teenager, 73%, have constant access to a device, it's really hard to regulate.
And devices are in school.
Yeah.
And so, I will stand on this platform that no, I don't think anyone should have their phone in their room, let alone a teenager.
Yeah.
I don't think the computer shouldn't be in their room. It should be in a family room where it can be supervised. But then again, you're putting that on the parent. I don't know how you legislate this, though.
Yeah. And it's also hard to do it as a parent. How much is too much? Is any exposure, before a certain age unacceptable? We're going through that with video games right now.
I mean, and then it goes both ways. I've read studies that say video games are really helpful for young minds in developing a different way of thinking. And that is going to be the world they live in.
Yes.
I always think you can spend time in that as long as you at least get a certain amount of time doing the other things.
Right.
Sunshine, activity, quality time with your friends. Yeah. Although even that, most of the kids say, well, I want this so that I can have social access to my friends, which is absolutely true.
Yeah.
Have you ever walked by a group of teenagers?
Oh, they're all on their phones.
They're all on their phones.
Yeah. No, it's terrible. It's not what we would consider socialization growing up in the 90s, And also it's another thing too. We talk about this all the time. Not everything on the internet is bad. If teens are using the internet to, do their homework and everything, making research easier, they don't have to go to the goddamn library like we did when we were kids to research our papers. It's all good. If you're expanding your mind with the information that you can access 73% of the time, then that's great. And but if it's all social media all the time and it becomes an obsession, it's rough.
And I would say that for anything. If you're reading and you do that 73% of the time, I would be concerned about you as a teenager.
Yep. You gotta have balance.
You gotta have
everybody needs balance. Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to some urban legend stuff. Urban legends really are modern parables. Like we talked about, they have some cautionary component and they serve to do more than just scare the shit out of you. So this is from a Webley article. Webley. The urban legends that are cautionary tales do exactly as they sound like they would do. Caution people against doing certain things, whether it's dangerous, wrong, or inappropriate. Again, moral judgment right there.
Right.
The purpose of these tales is often to prevent kids from getting into trouble and doing something they know they shouldn't. Plus, the morals of cautionary tales are often beneficial to the superstitious and morally conscious. I'm not gonna, worry that a hook man is gonna. Well, actually, I'm. The times that I've made out in and have had sex in cars, which has not been since I was like 1920. It's been a long time. Certainly in secluded areas in the back of my head, there was always, oh God, we're sitting ducks.
It was usually a cop who'd end up knocking on the window for me.
Always. Remember?
What are you doing in there?
Yeah.
You know what we're doing in here.
Exactly. You don't want to see this. Just walk away. We're going to leave. You're going to leave. Let's go. But yeah, it wasn't enough to like scare me out of premarital sex or anything like that. So let's take a look. Again, the hook hand dude, we're not going to delve too deeply into it. But again, this is cautions teenagers against having sex and serves as a reminder that it's up to the girl to apply the brakes. Again, it's always on us. The tale originated in the 50s. It's based off the true stories of teenagers who have gone necking on Lover's Lane and were returned to their families in pine boxes. Extreme. From there, the legend escalated with the addition of bloody hooks to murder stories, causing people to put hooks on car doors to remind teens to wait to have sex.
Really?
That sounds like something my mom would have done. Did I tell you about the time I found a fucking chicken foot in my bed?
No.
Oh my God. So me and my friends were dicks and we were 14. We were freshmen in high school. We went to the cemetery and somebody had decorated this gravesite with vases and stuff. And I was like, this vase is pretty. And I took it because I'm 14 and I'm a moron. My mom like flipped. She's like, you do not take things from the cemetery. And to teach me a lesson, she went to an Asian market and bought a chicken foot. And I was making my bed and she put it in my bed along with rosary beads and disavowed any knowledge of it. Oh yeah. I wish I could phone Melina in, patch Melina in right now because she remembers it distinctly.
What did you do?
I went and returned the vase. My mom had the best poker face. I mean, I think I knew deep down it was my mom because she was fucking nuts, but I took that goddamn vase right back to the cemetery where I found it. Yeah. Chicken foot. All right. This is from a Paisano online article. I guess I need a hug. Yeah. I've been through a lot. But yeah, it made me who I am today, for better or for worse. Paisano article, which I love as an Italian American. What makes urban legends so captivating is that they contain elements from everyday life, such as walking through the woods, driving down a long road, looking into a mirror. The list is endless. These are everyday things. So there is something so haunting about the possibility that ordinary things could expose us to the terrors these legends speak of. And as time passes, urban legends shift, again, retelling a modernized version of the story to newer audiences. And that makes these urban legends everlasting. Everlasting. They're flexible.
I love all the different versions, how I'm saying like, oh, the Burlington coat thing. You're like, oh, I haven't heard of that one, but I have heard of the snake in the
exactly.
thing. Poor Burlington. I think that actually like impacted them too.
I bet it did.
Burlington Coat Factory.
They're more than great
more than urban legends.
More than urban legends. So Carolyn, what are your thoughts on using urban legends as cautionary tales that compel the general public, especially young people, to behave or else suffer the consequences?
Oh, I mean, parenting's hard. I think if a story helps, here's what I'll say. If a story helps create conversation and discussion, and maybe it does change a behavior, I guess it's cool. But I personally think it's just better to teach anyone the actual truth.
Yes.
In a true crime format. And, again, not really focusing on the morality of the urges
and make it age specific,
and make it age
appropriate.
specific and appropriate. Exactly. But you don't lie to kids. They're
never.
Really smart.
I never lie to my child.
Don't, again, you don't have to tell them all the gory details, but you can use words. They'll get it. Yeah. Otherwise, if they don't, they're going to keep asking you questions.
Yes.
And I certainly don't like any story that uses victim blaming or shaming.
Yes.
Is a way to prevent you from doing something.
Especially when it's on the woman, as it always appears to be.
On the girl, right?
Yeah.
So here's what research tells us, though. Results of a study published in the Frontiers of Psychology indicate that those who promote and endorse animalistic, am I saying that right? Anomalistic beliefs,
yeah,
such as urban legends and the paranormal, are more likely to, this is me, exhibit reality testing deficits and schizotypal character. I texted Jen last night. I'm like, am I schizotypal?
You're schizotypal.
Magical or odd thinking, which is totally me. Of note, reality testing refers to, again, the ability to screnize the validity
you
of beliefs.
You are not that bad.
But I'll believe
that
things. It gives me the creeps,
Yeah.
The authors of the study also talked about that those who ascribe to urban legends let subjective and personal experiences guide their interpretation of the world. So it appears that believers are basically more likely to engage in experiential processing and base inferences about the world. I want people to do this on intuition and on honesty and truth. And, again, it might backfire on you. You keep telling that urban legend, then you might go out and make out in the car just to see if it happens,
well, there's
right?
so many scary things that happen in real life. I don't know why one has to necessarily resort to an urban legend.
Right.
Like you can be like, oh, Son of Sam's going to get you if y'all go make out in the car.
Yeah.
Human beings are the monsters.
Well, you also don't want to be that parent who's like, hey, can you make out at home?
Yeah.
Or just drink here.
Yeah, here's some booze.
You know, but again, the study talks about this thinking style kind of undermining critical rational processing, which I do agree with, that if you kind of just talk to that age group and tell them the truth, they'll probably figure it out.
Yeah.
Another study from the British Journal of Psychology looked at urban legends, categorized, again, kind of typical to what we talked about before, or similar, social type, survival type, or combined type, according, kind of integrating different ways that our human brain thinks, and then will hopefully make informed decisions. So again, if I don't know, what did my parents used to tell me? If you don't eat this, you're not going to grow up big and strong or something. Again, that's not an urban legend, but
if you eat watermelon seeds, a watermelon tree is going to grow in your stomach.
If you swallow your gum, it's going to live in your body for 7 years, but I was that kid who then I tested it. My sister helped with this. She was like, I bet you can't chew it all day. It's like, they just don't think you can do it. And I did. And I fell asleep with it in my mouth. And that's how I got my first haircut.
Oh no.
But to your point, Jen, the fact is we live in a world with very real predators.
Yes.
And you have to think about the risks and consequences when talking to any human, but especially children. And I believe the image of the child or any adolescent, they're not stupid. They're highly capable. And here's the other thing. They need a ton of supervision or at least containment that's confident boosting with boundaries. Right. And so I don't think it serves anyone to ever dumb shit down.
No.
And I suppose the problem is, again, we all disagree on what's considered morality and kind of age appropriate truth versus sugarcoating. But I think anytime you do that, you just enable ignorance and dependence.
Yeah. My mom would tell me real scary stories. Like, oh, you want to know what happened to John Walsh's kid? I'm like, oh my, which is absolutely deplorable, horrible. It's one of the most, obviously the worst thing that can happen to a parent, but she used it as a cautionary tale. Yeah. Like, don't talk to strangers. Don't go with anybody. You're going to end up,
Yeah, my parents kind of did that too, though.
That was the 80s.
That was the 80s.
Milk cartons.
Someone got kidnapped by our neighborhood or something did happen. And I remember my mom walking us out and showing us those, fire engine boxes that you can pull down and,
But see, that's good.
It was
Here's what you can do if you end up in a shitty situation.
Well, and this is why we don't let you go here. This is why.
Yeah.
But it was so fear-based too. Yeah. And this is why you can't go to sleepovers. And this is why you can't. And then there'd be well, because we said so or things like that. So
it's hard. It's hard as a parent to balance your own fears, which statistically, for the most part, they're not likely going to happen, but they could happen, and you hear all these stories about look, that school shooter, that 14-year-old that killed 14 of his classmates, awful, or 4 of his classmates. I'm sorry. He was 14. And dad has now been charged because kid had access to guns. That he had lied to the police about this kid and his access to guns.
To me.
It does, but that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, well, if I let my kid go and spend the night at a friend's house, likely nothing's going to happen. Parents could have guns that aren't properly stored. You know, those are the things that scare me. And so,
or invite cousins over, or friends of the family, And I don't.
Exactly. I've never met these people. I don't know who they are, and they're around my child. Like, these are very real fears, and I think that's, you know, the urban legends come from this place of trying to keep people safe. Yes. Like, is it sick? Is it fucked up?
Yeah.
But I think
they're memorable.
Right.
You don't forget them.
The purpose really for a lot of these is stay safe.
Yeah.
Lock the door, babysitter. Make sure no motherfuckers can get in the house. Like, if you're going to make out, like, maybe go somewhere that's a little more populated. Yeah.
Make it in a movie theater.
Totally.
That was my favorite.
Figure it out. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't write a final thought because I completely forgot to do it. But our final thought is these stories are meant to amuse.
Yes.
That's all they are. They are literally scary stories to tell in the dark. They don't need to be anything more than that. The world is a scary enough place without these stories. So, Carolyn, feel free to do your laundry tonight in the dark of the garage.
I'm not going to
Nothing's going to get you. And if something does get you, it's likely to be somebody who got in and has been sleeping down there for days.
Damn it.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm staying home. Mario's picking me up from here tonight.
There you go. Just crash down here.
I'm super curious if other people, especially the cultural stuff, if you have stories that you grew up with, message us. We would love to hear.
Yes, especially if you're from a different culture, because I feel like I'm so familiar with a lot of these urban legends. I'll be like, oh, that intersects with this American urban legend.
Yeah.
I just find it fascinating. It's kind of like, it's like religion, right?
Right.
When you look at the origin of not even just the big three, but other religions, you see these similarities.
Or food even.
Yeah.
Every culture has their wonton.
Right.
Or their noodle, or
soup.
something, right? So it's just, I don't know, from sort of a society standpoint, it's kind of interesting that doesn't matter where you were. People always have cared about safety. People have always cared about warning and protecting youth.
And it's a trip to me
elders.
too. Yeah. It's a trip to me too that before information circulated the way it does now, cultures that have never interacted were coming up with similar parables and stories. It's fascinating. It just goes to show you how similar we all are. As you said, we all need the same things. Safety, love, we all have the same basic needs. And so it makes sense that we would create similar stories.
Well, and we all, doesn't matter what culture you are, we all come from collective. Yeah. Tribal.
At least initially.
And that we've lost so much of that.
Yeah.
And that's the danger I worry about with our teens, that we need more of that storytelling. And that's beautiful.
Put down your phones, come together, put the flashlight under your face and scare the shit out of your friends. There's something wholesome about it. Just don't take it literally. No Slenderman shit, guys. All right.
Okay. No. Stay well.
Yeah.
Give us a review.
Yes, please. And make it a good one for the love of God.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. We'll see you next week. Follow us on TikTok. TWATJC, TWATJC. And from there, you can actually go to our profile. You can listen to our shit on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. Yay. Keep listening. And new listeners, start listening.
Yeah.
All right. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.